Hi, welcome to the SFL Liberty Reports. This time, I'm joined with Trenton Hale, the regional coordinator in the US, to discuss the US elections. Hi, Trenton. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So, I want to begin by talking about the election in itself before we talk about the consequences that happened. And I don't know how it was there in the US, but here in Europe, we were very convinced, or the polls suggested that Kamala would win, and we were very Europe is very was very pro Democrat in these elections. How was the expectation there in the US on the field? Did you expect such a red wave?
I had zero clue what to expect, to be honest. There were a lot of different polls saying different things. No one really had a clue like what's going to happen. Is Trump going to win? Is Kamala going to win? Is it going to be close? Is it going to be a landslide? What's with the House, Senate? It was all very confusing. There were so many different predictions where it's kind of 50-50. So it's not a surprise that Trump won. I was a little more surprised that he won the popular vote. Nobody saw that coming. Everyone thought Kamala was going to win the popular vote. Republicans don't win the popular vote. But it was very shocking to see him win that. Outside of that, it was really hard to tell what was going to happen because, again, so many different polls saying different things. It was kind of just anything could happen. It could be a red wave, blue wave in between, and ended up being a red wave.
Yeah, and it was a super red wave. They won all the elections, all the he has a super majority. He is completely no restraints to do whatever he wants. And but you see, here in Europe, what most shocked us was that he had that passed criminal deals. He is a convicted felon. That there was January 6th. Why aren't these issues resonating with the Americans as much as the Europeans?
Most saw his political convention as his federal convictions as being more just political tools used by the left to just try to stop him from being president. They didn't really see him as like a convicted felon, more just Democrats are trying to stop him. And the viewpoint of a lot of Republicans and even a lot of independents. And they felt this way too after the two assassination attempts. I thought the left was just trying to stop him at anything they can do. And then with January 6th, many also downplayed that as was not really a coup. They said it wasn't that violent. They saw there were a lot of peaceful protesters. So many didn't think it was the big issue that Democrats pointed to be. They didn't think it was that much of a threat to democracy. They kind of viewed it as a bad thing. That definitely was not something they cheered on. But more so, they thought it wasn't a huge deal, and they thought those weaknesses weren't as bad as what Kamala would do if she were to win the presidency.
Mm-hmm. So that's good. That so you mentioned that they thought that the criminal dealings and the January 6th wasn't as bad as Kamala could potentially be. But why couldn't Kamala at least say that no, see, I'm at least better than like these criminal charges? And how can Kamala resonate that badly with the US voters that she can at least get past or not be as worst for them as that?
Part of it was she didn't strategize very well. Part of it was she joined very late. She joined the race in July when Biden dropped out, 1 month before the Democratic National Convention, and just a few months before the election itself. So that was always a major negative for her because she had very limited time to really get herself out there to the average American folks. Another thing is she just didn't campaign very much on policy issues. She kind of focused more on set of policy positions and the convicted felonies and January 6th, more so on issues such as abortion and prior to 2025, which remain talking points with Democrats, but for Republicans who didn't like Trump or independents, it just didn't resonate with them. They were more concerned with other issues, not the issue of abortion. Abortion was not on the ballot on the federal level, nor was prior to 2025 a major concern outside of like people in like the left leaning circles. So she focused more on issues that resonated with her audience instead of issues of like January 6th and the criminal convictions. She didn't really rise above that because she didn't focused too much. She focused on other stuff that like liberals wanted to hear instead of what independents
Mhm.
and even some Republicans wanted to hear. She
Mhm.
didn't resonate with them very well.
So that's why that's why the majority of the voting base say that they trusted more Trump to handle issues like the economy and inflation that were more present
Yes,
um,
people were
like,
more concerned about the economy because it directly affected them with like gas prices, grocery prices, rather than just things like Project 2025 or the convictions of Trump or January 6th.
mhm. Um, but do you think that the Democrats in the next election can they come back? How can they reinvent themselves to appeal to a more independent base and to steal those votes away from the Republicans?
For in 2028, it's focusing on what the big issue is then. I don't know what the big issue is going to be in 2028. Like 2020, it was a different issue. It was more so the issue of COVID-19.
Mhm.
2016 was more about immigration and other stuff. It kind of changes from year to year, so it kind of depends what happens these next 4 years with Trump's doing. Is he going to do a lot of what he wants to do? Is he going to be very stagnated? Is what is he doing is going to be supported by most people, or is it going to be looked upon very negatively? Like in 2020, he was looked very negatively because of what he did, which is why Joe Biden was able to win, and then vice versa this past year. So it's really hard to tell what's going to happen in 2028. But one thing they need to do is kind of moderate the messaging to focus less on some of these liberal and progressive ideologies, because a lot of what they've done the past few years is shift more progressive. What they need to do is shift more moderate to appeal to some of these issues.
Mhm.
They don't need to complain about what progressives want. They need to focus more on what independents want. Mainly, I would say they need to focus on the economy and fixing it, realizing the issues of the economy instead of saying it's fine, it's no big deal, the economy is doing well when it really isn't doing great. They need to be more real with that, and they need to focus on what people care about. Don't focus
Mhm.
on issues such as abortion and the plan to part of 2025. They need to focus on what people care about, which most likely is going to be the economy and whatever other big things that Trump does these next 4 years. It's very hard to tell what the big issue is going to be in 4 years because it
Yeah.
seemingly changes every year in every election cycle.
Mhm. Of course, 4 years is such a long time in politics. I saw this graph in I think it was in the Financial Times, which was despite the independents shifting left a bit, the Democrats shifted so much left that they ended up alienating their own base. So that's completely what you're saying. Most people probably do agree with abortion and with some of the issues that they are agreeing to, but they just don't matter as much in their day-to-day lives as the economy.
Right.
Um, do you think that it is the blame of Joe Biden for this failure of the Democrats? So he tried to run against Trump, even though he clearly wasn't ready mentally, and then he just had a very bad debate performance, and it gave like no time for Kamala to campaign and to conduct some proper primaries. Do you think that Joe Biden is to blame for Trump's win?
I don't know if he's necessarily to blame. I think no matter what would have happened, even if he just committed to doing one term and not do 2 terms, it always would have been a Trump victory with everything that happened. I don't think if Kamala ran the entire time, she would have won. It probably would have been closer than it was, but I don't think she would have won regardless. I don't think Biden sabotaged her because everything that he did these past 4 years, people were very much so against. People hated it, and they would have viewed any Democrat as supporting that because all Democrats did these 4 years is throw their support behind Joe Biden. So he, I don't think it necessarily caused it to really lose. It was they were. I think they were always going to lose this election, no matter who they ran.
Hmm. There is also this weird effect that people seem to trust Trump a lot with the economy, even though his economic plan um, has a lot of contradictions. He wants to put tariffs, which will probably increase prices, but he wants to cover inflation. He wants well, there's these contradictions that he plans. He wants to cut taxes, and he wants to cut the budget, and Joe Biden actually had some positive economic effects. He increased employment. Do you think that Trump economics is viable? Will it be better than Biden economics?
It is really low because there are a lot of pros what Trump's economic plans is, like cutting domestic taxes, cutting regulations dramatically. One of the best things he did during his first term was cut regulations by a lot. He did really good with deregulation, but then his tariffs are just abysmal. They're horrible. They're going to raise prices. It's this very weird dynamic where he has a lot of sets of good things, and a lot of things of bad things. So it's very hard to tell what really it is. I trusted a little more than Bidenomics because what Biden did is he didn't cut the tariffs one bit at all. He kept all Trump's tariffs. In fact, he proposed new tariffs earlier this year as well. So he's pretty much very protectionist like Trump was. So Trump wants to propose new tariffs again. So Biden probably beats out a little bit when it comes to tariffs. But on like internal taxes and regulations, Trump does better at that because if Biden wanted new taxes, and if he got his way, we would have even more taxes on us, which would have hurt the economy much more. He passed more regulations, or Trump wants to do the opposite in this. So in that aspect, Trump a lot in those areas, and he would do a lot more for like creating new jobs and businesses. So it's very weird dynamic between the two of which is really better. I lean more towards Trump's economics just because of cutting internal taxes and regulations, as well as that he wants people like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, for all their faults in his administration, to push for more efficiency. And a lot of what those two want is to do kind of what Javier Milei did, drastically reduce taxes and regulations and fostering more growth for the economy, what he did in Argentina. And they've said they want to replicate that. So because of that, I am more optimistic about Trump's economics than Biden's, but there are a lot of concerns and dangers with what Trump is wanting to propose.
Mm-hmm. So speaking still on the economic issues of Trump, the tariffs, which to me is what concerns me about economic plans too, because I also believe that lowering deficits and lowering spending and even lowering taxes, although balancing those is a bit difficult, but I agree with those in principle, and I do think that the US needs to cut down regulations and cut down spending, but the tariffs and how he's threatening to put tariffs on his allies, on Canada, on Mexico, on Europe, and China. Do you think that he's about to start these trade wars with his allies?
So I was saying, I think he's going to do with like our enemies, like with China and everything. Allies, I think he's kind of full of crap. I don't think he's actually going to do it. I don't, as kind of reckless and dumb as he can be, I don't think he's dumb enough to do that. I think his advisors are going to say, this is a bad idea to do this with our allies. But I don't think he's going to do it with Europe. I think he's just doing it as a political tool than just being dead serious about it. Though I could see him actually doing it. He's kind of unpredictable.
We are re-entering this world of protectionism and of geopolitical conflicts driving trade. Can we, that's as libertarians and as that support every trade, can you see the world going back to free trade, or are we in just in a one-way street to protectionism?
I could see us going more free trade, especially if Trump does follow through with all his terrorist threats. Because if he follows through with all his terrorist threats, it's gonna be pretty bad. He's gonna say, you realize that's too much. We don't need that much tariffs. I don't think we're ever gonna get to a point with zero tariffs on anything. At least not anytime soon. We're not to that reality, unfortunately. But I do think, depending on what happens with the economy, what happens with our allies, that we could hopefully go back to a period of more free trade, less less protectionism, especially with our allies. I do think we can get to that. I just don't know if it's going to happen immediately. It could take a while. Again, it all kind of just depends on if Trump can follow through with his promises on tariffs. I think if he follows through with his promises on tariffs, we are going to get it a lot sooner than later. But if he doesn't get his way and we don't enact many new tariffs, I think we're still a bit ways out from having more free trade, unfortunately.
Just regarding Trump's government, I have one more question for you. Here in Europe, I saw a lot of talk about Trump's cabinet and the controversies surrounding some picks. How do Americans see his cabinet picks?
Very mixed. It is very much so lines with your political beliefs. If you're Democrats, you hate them. If you're Republicans, you more like them. If you're independents, libertarians, very mixed bag. For libertarians, there's some people that they like. They're okay with RFK being in the cabinet. Though I don't particularly like him that much to be in the cabinet. Some like Tulsi Gabbard, who presents some pros with trying to be more of an interventionist. Some say she's more of a Russian asset, so she's kind of more of a pro and con. Though there is a big disappointment among us libertarians who wanted to see he promised libertarian in his cabinet. He did not fulfill this promise. It's a very big disappointment, though it's not a shocker to anyone that lives in reality. But there are some good things. Like he also elected Linda McMahon to be Department of Education because she is very much so in favor of school choice, which is a big thing that I support and a lot of other people support. It's a very big positive to fix our education system. So it's very much so a mixed bag between like the people who just do whatever Trump wants, which is very negative, and those who are more like libertarian conservative, like McMahon and other ones. It's very much so a very mixed bag, like his first administration. There's always going to be picks that are like, this is a really bad pick, why are you doing this? And other ones that are more like, this could work out. More negative than positive, but that seems to be more of American politics, more negative than positives, unfortunately.
To finish, I have here one more question that I wanted to ask you. How do you see our country in the next 4 years?
Very hard to tell what's going to happen. Because there's a lot of different things that are going on. I could see us shifting more back to Democrats, more embracing Republicans. I could also see us embracing more liberty-minded politics, especially if like Vivek and Elon are going to get approved for their Department of Government Efficiency. If that happens, if they follow through what they say they're going to do, which is slash our bureaucracy, regulations, and taxes, and do a lot of what Javier Milei is doing, that would be an enormous positive for liberty in America if we're copying what Milei is doing. And there is that possibility of us actually following through with that. But there is also as much possibility of us ignoring that and not doing that. So it's very much so a question mark. There are reasons to be optimistic, but I do think there are some more in pro-liberty, like what a lot of us in America are doing in SFL organizations to push liberty to get these policies passed in our states. Like one thing that I'm working on right now is passing a bill in my state to make it so that all public universities have to allow firearms on their campuses to allow for like campus carry. I do think if we get more students doing that and other bills like free speech and protecting liberties on their campuses and pushing these ideas to other people, I do think we could see a wave of more liberty-minded young folks, which will be an enormous positive. But of course, there are reasons to fail. Libertarianism has not at all been enacted in America. It's still very much so a minority. There are reasons to be optimistic these next 4 years, and I could see it going in so many different directions. It's very hard to pinpoint just one. But I'll finish. There are reasons to be optimistic, and there are reasons to be very concerned over the next 4 years. It's a very interesting time to be an American and to be a libertarian in America.
Thank you so much for joining us, Trenton. It's been a very interesting conversation, especially getting some insights from the US.
Of course. Thank you for having me.